Animation is an amazing thing, and I've always wanted to animate my stream in some really cool way that didn't require the use of some pre-made video that you see somewhere in here. Yep. Yo, Ivan! Hold on, I gotta go into OBS to fix this. Hold on a second. Ivan! Dude, hey! Can you push that box to the left? Push it that way. Keep going. A little more. Little more. I think we're good. I think we're good. Thank you. Yeah. There's a much easier way to do that. Welcome back, folks, to the channel. I'm Avanta Sandwich, and we're going to go over some plugins today because in one of my past videos, we talked about the 5 best plugins to put on your stream, but the one that I like the best, it's my personal favorite. Celdra made a beautiful plugin. It's called the Move Transition plugin. The plugin's been updated since that last video anyway, so I figured it's worth a revisit. Let's jump right in to see everything it can do. To put this in the simplest terms, this transition does exactly what the name says it does. It moves things from one scene to another. So no stingers, no videos, no fades. This one literally just moves sources from one scene to the next. You can make this happen practically any way you want. You can crop, resize, shrink, zoom, 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 enhance, enhance. You did the picture. Then if you really want to get fancy, later on in the video, I'm going to show you how you can move just one source on a scene without actually transitioning from one scene to the next. It's not even crazy.
Hey, goodbye, Dirt!
Crazy. Awesome, I mean. Stick around for that. First thing you gotta do is download and install the plugin.
All right, let's do this one last time. My name is...
Install a plugin.
It's easy. I'm not gonna waste a lot of time on it. You download, click, drag, drop, restart OBS, and you're done. Okay? Simple. Moving on. Go. Get to the next part, please. Get off. Go. Go. Now you gotta open up OBS again, and you should look under the transitions box. There should be a move option there now, and it's fantastic. We're done. I'm just kidding. We're doing a lot more detail. So let's go ahead and jump on into that. So we have to reopen up OBS, and we're gonna go ahead and just add, which should be there now that you've done the install. We just gotta add the move transition. I'm gonna change mine to, just from experience, I'm gonna change the transition time to about 400 milliseconds. Click on the drop-down menu and go to add move. You already see that we have a cut and a fade transition. We need to add the move transition. We'll leave it named move. And here we go. This is the settings menu. Before we get into the settings though, I have to set up a few scenes just so you can see how it works, because the default options look pretty good. So let me set those up, and then we'll go back into the settings menu and see what changing those does for the overall transition. Be right back.
Few moments later.
Let's look at the default transition and see how that looks, because default's not terrible, as a matter of fact. So here we go. So these look pretty good. Let's go ahead and let's tweak it a little bit to make it fit what we want to see. I don't want everything to kind of move out to the right like it's doing and come in from the left. Not my cup of tea. All right, so we'll go into the properties of the move transition. I'm gonna drag this up so we can see everything, and you see all the sections here. So let's start with section number 2, the move all section. There's a checkbox for caching transitions, and then there's the switch point slider. Pretty much all that does is during your transition, so we have ours set to 400 milliseconds. So within that 400 milliseconds, where do you want to change from scene A to scene B? At 50%, that's halfway through, so that's 200 milliseconds. We can mess with that if we need to. I'm gonna leave it at 50% for this video. Y'all tweak it how you think you need. Now, going on to the match name. This section is going to tell OBS which sources are the same. They're not really the same, but in OBS, as far as this transition is concerned, they're going to appear as being the same. For the first one, name part match. Essentially with that is, let's say we have a scene called cam or camera. That means if you have this selected, if any other sources on any different scenes you're transitioning to contain the word cam, if it's anywhere in the name, it doesn't matter what's going on with the rest of the name, if there's any instance of the word cam in that name, it is considered matched and will transition according to whatever rules you have set up. In the name number match section, all this means is that as long as the name is the same, except maybe you have a number pasted onto the end of it or tacked onto the end of it, they are going to be matched. And then the final checkbox is similar, but this one is name a last word match. So if you have camera main, camera secondary, whatever the case is, if you take off the last word, so the main or the secondary in camera, camera still matches. Let's get to the move match settings. All right. Based off what we just talked about, we're going to be talking about all the items that are going to match and move between each transition. The first part is the easing. And easing is pretty much a way of making movement look a little more natural, so it doesn't look like a straight, you can decide where you want it to ease. It could not ease at all. It can ease at the beginning, it can ease at the end, or it can ease during both. Pretty straightforward. I like the easing in and out. I like my movements to look pretty smooth, and that helps us do that. The default easing function is cubic, which this is all math terms. I'll put an overlay for what these graphs actually look like, what these shapes look like. I'm gonna stick again with just the standard cubic, the default, because I think it's a pretty decent looking transition. The transition tab allows us to override the type of switch you're going to have between the two matched items. So for our cameras, I would like them to fade. For the transition scale type, I'm going to use the max only, but I'm also going to put an overlay from the actual plugins website. Etceldra does an excellent job with his diagrams and whatnot with the materials, so that should be on the screen as well. Let's do that. With the curve, we can leave it at 0, which means that the movement's going to be a straight line from point A to point B. So whoop. If you set the curve to be negative, that means that the object will move towards the middle of the screen in its transition, and if you set the number to be positive, it'll move away from the middle of the screen. I'll show you in the thing. It'll be good. I just want to focus on the matched items for a second, so let's see what all of our settings cause to happen in the scene. So let's just do name part match. You should see that that'll work too. So now, instead of it going out like you saw before, it actually moved over to the new position. And same thing here, and it fades in the middle. So if I slow down the transition, we can see what that looks like. And it fades during the middle of that transition. It's pretty smooth. I like it a lot. If you look between main and game 1, right here, you'll see that I have a blur in the background, and that is not present on any of the scenes. So it zooms in from the left-hand side of the screen. It zooms in from over here and gets large, right? So we saw that happen. And then when it leaves, it goes back out to the right side of the screen. I don't really want that to happen. Maybe I just want it to fade in. So I'll show you guys how to do that in the next section. The move in and the move out boxes are very, very similar to the matched items boxes. You'll see that the easing is still there, the easing function is still there, the curve is still there, and the transition options are still there. The two new ones we have are zoom and the position, and these are the two we want to mess with. So I didn't really like how it zoomed in from the side. If you do, leave the zoom box checked. If you don't, which I don't, I'm going to uncheck this box. Now, as you saw, I'm going to uncheck it for both actually. As you saw, when the blur came in, it moved in from the left-hand side of the screen and zoomed in. As it left, it zoomed out to the right-hand side of the screen. This is what this position tab affects. So you can literally have it move anywhere. Since I don't have zoom on, I don't want it to appear from anywhere. I just want it to sort of fade in. So I'm going to select none for it to fade in. I also want it to fade out. So I'm going to select none again. And then for the transition, I'll just add a fade for the out and a fade for the in. And now when I hit OK, we should try moving these scenes again. Let's see what happens. So if we go to game 1, it just faded out. If I go to game 2, it doesn't make a difference there, but let's sort of fade that in. And also, did you notice how cam 2 transitioned seamlessly into cam as a fade? So everything just fades in and it looks super good, but you don't see that blur zooming in behind anymore, which is excellent. I think that looks pretty darn good. So that's where I'm gonna stop with the move transition, but there is one more thing I wanna show you. So let's jump to that. Did you know you could put filters on scenes? Because I didn't when I first started streaming, so pro tip. There's so much you can do with these settings. You can put filters on scenes. Let's do that. Open up the filters menu here. It'll bring up your filters for the scene that you're on or whichever one you clicked on. And let's say we want to do an override. So move transition override filter. I'll just press OK. And now you can essentially pick any of the sources on this page. So whichever source you select will take on these settings when coming to this scene. If you want it to start a little bit later, and have the movement appear delayed, that's where you put the start to. And again, the percentages are going to be based off how far through the transition you are. So 400 milliseconds, it's not a long time. If you want a longer transition, if you want to do like a second, and then you want to have them all sort of stagger in, that's where these really come into play. If you've seen my stream, for example, I really like to have on my gameplay scene my camera in certain positions, but they're able to move without me changing scenes. So I can move my camera to any of the corners or middle of the screen. And I've also, in combination with cruise control and touch portal, my mods are allowed. My mods are able to run commands in chat that also move my camera. So I don't have to worry about it. If I'm on top of something that the chat wants to see, the mods can fix it for me. It's pretty good stuff. And let me show you how to do that too. So the same way I'm gonna go to this scene, because if you look, I have two cameras on this screen. And let's say maybe I wanted to like move this camera, which is cam 2, over to the right of the screen. So what I can do is I can go and I can add a filter. I deleted my other one. And we're gonna make this one a move source filter. Okay, so now I wanna select the source I'm trying to move, which is gonna be the camera, and it automatically populates the position data of where the camera already is. I don't wanna worry about changing any of the visibility. I want the camera to stay on. So if you want it to turn off after a move, you can do that here. There's an on, off, toggle, etc. If you wanna change the order, like if you want it to go underneath something, you can do that, or come above something, you can do that as well. Order position, this is how many it will change on each move. And then there's a start delay, duration, and an end delay. I like to keep easing in and out, but if you want it to be linear, which is no easing, or any of the other options, you can do that here too. So none, in, out, in and out. Easing function, again, I'll keep cubic. I don't need anything else right now. Let's do just a slight curve, so it kind of goes away from the center. And then start trigger is going to be enable, disable. The next move is going to be reverse, because I want this camera to go back to the same position it's in now. So then we will do a hotkey so that way we can set it up. So let's do that. I'm actually going to move the camera over real quick, just kind of drag it. Oops. And then if we hit start, it should move it back. There, and that's nice and smooth. So that's with the curve. Now we need to set up some hotkeys. So if you haven't done hotkeys before, here's a bonus tip. You go into the settings, run to hotkeys. You need to find the actual scene that you're on. So this scene is called game 2. So we go down till we find game 2, and then move camera. Let's just make it a hotkey. Let's control and the number pad 1, okay? So now we hit apply. Every time I hit control and number pad 1, the filter activates and then deactivates, and then I'm able to reactivate it, and it just goes back and forth between these positions. I think that's about it for this video. So as I mentioned, with my stream, I combine this with a bunch of other tools. So I have cruise control and touch portal. If you'd like to see tutorials and some uses on how to use either of those programs, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to do some more tutorials. I think I've got a basic cruise control one in the pipeline, so subscribe so you can see that one when it comes out. And be sure to hit me up on Twitter, Discord, Instagram, Parler, whatever other social media platforms you use. I'm down to have a conversation, help you out with anything you might need help with, answer any questions you might have, any questions you might have. I also stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. That schedule might be changing here in a little bit since my wife has started streaming again. Check out that video, by the way, where I set up my wife's stuff. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the future videos about where I go over cruise control, where I go over OBS Portable Edition. You know, these are just a few things I'm working on, but there's a lot more to come. So subscribe for that sandwich. And don't ever miss a meal.
That's a good one.